Hello, I'm Dalton Barnes, and today I'll be talking about hunter liability and hunting accidents. Since the founding of America, hunting has become a large part of our culture and history. So, from spears to muzzle loaders and modern day weaponry, the tradition was and is alive and well in our economy. However, having freedom to pursue this hobby has always brought a bit of controversy to the table. Many legal issues arise out of the practice, namely involving hunting accidents. Most legal cases that spawn out of these accidents involve the liability of said accidents. These can involve the person doing the shooting, victims of the shooting, and sometimes even landowners are brought into question. With gun violence being prominent in the U.S., many people would argue that the gun owning community faces plenty of backlash at the moment. The incompetence of a few bad eggs leaves a larger impression than one might think. I aim to delve into the court processes and learn how becoming liable for these events works in a court of law. The accidents themselves are what end up making the news. There are hardly ever any hunter liability cases that the mainstream media will follow. Local news stations cover accidents as they happen. Washera County in Wisconsin states that this is the deadliest deer season they have seen in 5 years, with 2 shooting fatalities and 4 injuries taking place as a result of gun accidents. The annual 9-day deer season that they celebrate can give way to plenty of court cases, with accidents becoming more common and the increased number of hunters in the woods. A North Carolina man was also killed recently on a hunting trip not too long ago near Greenville. Another common trend is landowners having to claim liability for people getting hurt on their land. This has sprung up from an uprising of insurance coverage for both proprietors and hunting clubs. These cases can get messy, and these are the last people that would want to be held accountable. As I mentioned earlier, I chose to focus on how liability gets distributed between court cases. It has taken some interesting turns over the years. For example, in State versus Newberg, the plaintiff was found guilty for manslaughter. Upon his appeal, however, it was determined that both the defendant and the person he killed were acting equally negligible. In the end, both of them were found equally liable. The process isn't always this simple, however. It can actually be rather hard to prove liability when there aren't reliable eyewitness accounts, or one cannot produce any solid evidence. In another case, People versus Joyce, the defendant allegedly shot a man shooting at what he believed to be a deer. He was charged with causing the death of one of his party members through culpable negligence. The county court ultimately determined that the plaintiff did not have enough evidence to prove culpable negligence. Most hunter liability cases center around similar criteria. Some of these cases are several decades old, and the process has improved, but the nature of these incidents can still lead to uncertainty due to their location in the woods. The best source for hunter accident liability I found by far was Vincent Fudo. In 1964, he conducted a law review paper centered around this subject. He brings up some solid points around the severity of this legal branch. He notes the increasing use of the res ipsa loquitur doctrine in cases where there are little evidence but fault is suspected. Under res ipsa, hunters tend to be held liable when they are in complete control of a weapon, but it is negligently discharged, leading to an accident. To me, this seems fair. If someone is out hunting, they should be doing their best to take all necessary precautions, especially when handling their weapon. After all, hunting is a dangerous sport, and no facet of it should ever be taken lightly. Wilford versus Nielsen, a case on this subject that did not end in death, dealt with a serious injury that was allegedly the result of negligence. The two parties were shooting at pheasants, and Wilford was injured. However, the court found that, due to the fact that Wilford was very much aware of the situation, his claims were much less justified. Fudo covers this idea briefly, saying that in order to avoid complication, hunters should be ever vigilant in order to evade actionable fault. In other words, a competent hunter shouldn't go out unprepared and immediately think that they are justified to sue if they get injured. In many situations, I would agree with this statement. This is a general rule of thumb, however, and obviously doesn't apply to every single situation. But in most cases, if a hunter is out in the woods trying to hunt, they should be aware of their surroundings for their own sake and for the sake of other hunters. Fuda goes on to address the policies of individual states, stating how one could be criminally liable upon gross or reckless negligence, or when a death has occurred. I think that the federal government should be at more of a consensus on this. If the definition is blurred as we cross the states, then people may receive different charges for virtually the same crime. This may seem like an unfair process to some. Out of the states that do not support it, however, they all require gross or reckless negligence in order to charge criminal liability. This seems like it will be effective at only punishing those who deserve it beyond a shadow of a doubt. Hunter liability presents the legal system with some interesting cases. With the coming of widespread hunting season every year, it is safe to assume that these accidents will continue to happen. Our current system towards them appears to be working well enough, although there are some parts of it that I would consider a little underdeveloped. However, I'm obviously not an expert opinion on this. Most of the rules in place handle hunter negligence a lot better than I had expected. All things considered, our methods of deducing hunter liability appear to be well thought out processes having been perfected over the years. And here are my sources. I hope you enjoyed my presentation.